Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supergirl. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I feel weird even saying interesting just because, obviously it's a very, sad aspect to this episode is the whole situation of, Nia's friend Yvette being attacked by some dude attacking her just because she's part of the trans community and everything. And also because it's for him, it's oh, this is blah blah blah, and he doesn't even, because it's also because what Dreamer represents, someone from that community being a superhero, being this symbol, he doesn't like that too. And obviously this hits very close to home for Nia, because it's not only is this her friend that's getting attacked, but her friend is getting attacked because of the community that they belong to. It's an attack on her, an attack on all the entire community because of it being a hate crime. And the fact of the matter is, Kara is trying to be we'll get justice, but Nia doesn't want justice, she wants revenge, because it's because it's that thing of and Kara kind of expresses this as a situation of you can be sympathetic but not empathetic, because it's as someone who's not a part of that community, you can never really truly understand what it's like to walk a day in their shoes, to be judged just because of your situation, because of how you identify, who you are, that you being you is an issue, And I think, to a certain extent, Kara can understand that, because obviously she's an alien, but her situation's a little different. Because obviously it's something, even Kate deals with, because people have an issue with Batwoman because, she's a gay superhero. So, it's that same situation. And even Yvette kind of brings it up later on, that it's not only am I trans, I'm also black. So it just means, it's just kind of getting screwed over in two different remarks, kind of being, treated differently because of just your situation, and it just... You can understand why Nia is as mad as she is, especially, because when she has an opportunity, she draws the guy out and ends up attacking him. Given the opportunity, she would have killed him if Kara hadn't stepped in, because it's especially because, William and Kara were, releasing something talking about the, using Yvette's quote, as well as talking about I think the statistics and stuff like that of attacks on that community and everything. And it's that thing of it's just that thing of I guess because you never realize just how much hate is in the world. And I think that's for Kara, because once again, Kara can understand, because especially she's dealt with the whole anti-alien situation. But this is on a human level of just someone being different, that being enough to piss you off. Because hell, even, it didn't come up too much, but let's not forget, Nia doesn't also have to deal with the whole trans situation. She also has to deal with the fact of being half alien, too. So, there is an element of that as well to this whole situation. So, but Kara, talked her out of killing him, because it's you do this, whatever the darkness he has is going to pass on to you. You are a hero. You're a pillar to this community. You're a hero to people. Don't let what you represent to this community be tarnished by his hate, And I like what she said, that basically, when you get out of jail, I will keeping an eye on you, and if you attack anyone in my community again, I will show you, drown you essentially in a nightmare, And it's I think it's interesting, because we've never seen Nia get like this before. She's always been pretty, calm, cool, and collected, but under these circumstances, you can understand why she was as heated as she was. And for her, so much was kind of spiraling, because she had a vision of her powers activated, telling her what was about to happen to Yvette, but she couldn't interpret the dream. She couldn't interpret it fast enough, and she feels responsible because I didn't act fast enough, because I don't still have full control over my powers in that regard, and not able to jump to it immediately. I wasn't able to save Yvette from being attacked. She blames herself still not being able to save her mother's life. And then it's for her, it's the one person in the world who, loved her and also accepted her for her, who gave her the strength. It's this person by her side was, Brainy. And without Brainy by her side, she feels, and especially the way Brainy looked at her earlier in the episode, he kind of walked away, and she's I don't know why he looks at me like that. Now she's thinking maybe because the sad thing is, Brainy looks at her like that, because obviously Brainy is still madly in love with her. And the fact of the matter is, he's, he feels guilty anytime he looks at her, because I think it's a thing of like, I want to be with you, but I can't. I have to keep my distance. But it's also because he knows that he's lying to her and everyone. Lying to her in particular, I think, hits him the hardest because he cares the most about her. And I think that whole situation, is why he kind of put, like, he has to, I think it's kind of to resolve himself of like, because when he looks at her, it's just a reminder of what he's doing. But it's also a reminder of why he's doing it. So it's a complicated thing, So it's like, obviously they don't have the context, Nia in particular doesn't have the context of why Brady's acting the way he's doing, why he broke up with her and everything. So it's a really complicated situation, but, all that, it kind of made her feel kind of a little off kilter. And for the first time, it's like, that was so much that she couldn't necessarily control. But this, someone that she cared about was attacked. She could defend her community. This was something she could control for the first time. And this became the main focus. And just like, it's just so much other stuff combined with just the hatred for this guy who attacked, someone that she cares about, an attack on her community, that it just, it's just like I said, that's why I'm just like, it's just this hard situation. You're just like, the episode just leaves you kind of like, I think it's actually a good thing the episode leaves you like that, because you're just like, right, because it's not meant to just be like, oh, in the fictitious sense of the show. It's like, no, it's a real thing. Like, some people out are pieces of shit. They attack people just because they're different. So it's just thinking about it. And I think that's the point of to make you realize that. But also realize that obviously it's something that Kara had said. Like, the fact of the matter is, you don't have to do this alone, because I'm here with you. Like, you feel, I don't want you to feel like you have to fight. It's like we might not have been able to fully see, like, what you went through, what your community's going through. But the fact is, our eyes are open here now, and we're here to defend it with you. It's me, John, Alex, even Brainy, despite your situation. And even that's the thing, because Brainy, because the moment he found out, like, wait, Nia's in trouble, like, this is what happened, this is, an attack on that community, someone that was close to Nia and everything, it's like, okay. And, he ended up, that dude was a part of, like, a hate group, and Brainy handed all that over to the cop, that was investigating everything. Because for Nia, it was that situation of like, oh, you weren't getting results fast enough. But for Brainy, it was like, the DEO takes any attack on our sister superheroes personal, So I just thought that was kind of a nice, I wouldn't even call it a silver lining, but like a nice resolve to this episode. I mean, obviously it's not like a full resolve, but even, Nia talking to Yvette, because Yvette wanted to kind of just like disappear, kind of, it's like, I should have known better. I wanted to give people kind of the benefit of the doubt, but Nia's like, don't let this one terrible person stop you from putting yourself out there. The fact of the matter is, you deserve love. You're a beautiful woman. The fact of the matter is, you will find someone who will love you for you. So I thought that was kind of a nice, message of the episode. Another side of things is we had, Kara and William went on their first date. She talked about not being, because at first I was wondering, because she was playing pool and everything, I was like, oh, you're trying not to go super strength, huh? I was like, oh, you got control enough over your powers, but I guess maybe because she's nervous, she's worried, like, oh. But the fact is, I guess maybe like just being a superhero, all those superpowers just kind of gives her amazing coordination, because like she hits it, and even women's like, holy shit, and she's like, oh, it's kind of beginner's luck or whatever, so. But along with that, in this episode, we have, obviously Alex is still struggling because like she can't get her weapon to work. Like she can get it morph into a gun, but nothing else can. It's still kind of a work in progress. So she works with John, because John gets contacted by Al because Al's brother Trevor is missing, and it's all ties. I didn't talk about it, but obviously this all ties into where the beginning of the episode started. We had that dude in the virtual using Obsidian Platinum. He was using the lenses and everything, and he ended up couldn't get out of the program no matter what. He tried to end the simulation. He tried to use the button but couldn't get out. Well, that all kind of circles back around, because Trevor's kind of connected in that same regard of like, all right, like he's kind of been spending so much time in the virtual, because even Al talked about like him and his brother were super close, but for like the past couple months, all Trevor wants to do is spend so much time in the virtual. And obviously John and Alex kind of investigate. John's investigating from the real world. Alex, working with Kelly, investigates from inside the virtual. I even liked it. It's kind of like, oh, you can basically kind of choose like your destination type, your virtual destination getaway. Even at one point, you see like Alex kind of like as Supergirl, and then like another one was her as a family. I guess it's like maybe it just naturally kind of pulls from what you want, or maybe it's just kind of like, oh, these are the things people want to experience, and they just like obviously it just mirrors like what you look like onto. I'm curious, was that personally selected just because I noticed those two in particular, because those I think for her it's like the superhero thing is kind of her thing, and also she always wanted a family. So I think I'm wondering, like I said, was that just personal? Was that just made personal for her because of data they've gathered, or was that just something that is like that for everyone? And I'm curious, whatever the case may be. But basically she goes into the casino and ends up being like, oh, there's a connected add-on. It's basically like, obviously it has like very like scary, like, okay, the moment she goes in there's like lone plastic sheet stuff, and I'm like, oh, this looks very serial killery. But basically these two dudes are being tortured. They're like drowning in these tanks and stuff like that. The fear manifested itself in that regard because that's what Alex was afraid of, and it's based on fear and stuff like that. So, but it turns out, because John does some investigating, and he finds out that basically this lady was having an affair with Trevor, a virtual affair, and her husband Richard found out about it. Interestingly enough, and I was like, oh, that's because she's like, oh, but it wasn't in a real world, it was just a virtual, so it's kind of like, it's fine. I'm like, yeah, because technically that would be the same thing as emotional cheating. It's like, but then it's like, I mean, regardless if like, I'm like, yeah, that's still kind of like, that's like cyber sexing with someone that's not your significant other. It's literally the same thing. It's just actually a little more hands-on from a technical standpoint than cyber sex. Still, regardless, the fact of the matter is this whole situation, I mean, luckily Alex was able to get to Trevor in time, but it was kind of sad because Richard was getting back at him and basically made it so like he explodes. For him, it's like at first he was scared to step anywhere because he thought it was a mind-related situation, but it's like, no, even when he stands still, he starts to blow up. So it's even, it's basically Richard constantly putting him perpetually in a state of, being it's meant to make him suffer and stuff like that. But luckily Alex was there, and luckily she was able to take Richard down and ended up knocking him out of virtual. But all of this ended up bringing up some complicated things that, like, for Kelly, because she was like, obviously that glitch of not being able to end the simulation. The fact of the matter is she had already dealt with that like 2 months prior, but we see that, it turns out that Leviathan's involved. The lady that works with Leviathan was there. Was like, oh no, Miss Olsen, I'll handle this. I'm like, oh, okay, because we know obviously they've got their hands all over Obsidian, so it's like, for what purpose? We'll get to it soon enough. But the fact of the matter is that, plus the fact is that it's like Alex's gun worked, and she's like, whoa, that shouldn't have worked, because it's like, yeah, it's supposed to feel real, but it shouldn't have been enough to actually knock him out of the system. So it's like, whatever goes on in that virtual world, it isn't just like, oh, it tastes and feels real. It seems like it becomes real to a certain extent. I wonder, was it a byproduct of like the Martian weapon she had equipped, or was it just because Richard made everything a little more real in his section that he created? Whatever the case may be, Kelly's like, she reported the bug and everything. So I think we're going to slowly but surely start tiptoeing in that direction of like, all right, we got to figure out, like, obviously, like, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes about this whole, Obsidian thing, which is interesting considering like what happened last episode, because, Andrea was kind of like, the benefits of this, it's like, yeah, like there's like one complicated situation of it, Amy and her husband, but this is, it helps so many countless people. But even Kelly was like, she does believe in the good that this the Obsidian Platinum can do, but she also recognizes like there are some bugs and issues that we need to work out, that people can abuse it. We've got to put some like restraints and stuff like that, who can actually get it. So I think it's going to turn into almost like how people treat firearms, of like how, I mean, especially Richard was able to kind of manipulate it like that to hurt people, to kind of trap them and torture them. So obviously it can be weaponized in that regard, which you can only assume that's what Leviathan has planned, because at the end we see them with Richard's body, but it seems like there's a whole bunch of other bodies. So what we ended up seeing with Richard was like, because when he was looking at John, we could see it like basically his mind is stuck in a state where he can't distinguish between, like, I think it almost puts you in a simulated coma, in a sense that like it kind of locks your mind into a simulation, And that's what I'm kind of assuming that's what that's supposed to be, because it seemed like I think he was out of the simulation, but then all of a sudden he couldn't tell. Like, I think the simulation kind of traps your mind, and it seems like I'm assuming that's the rest of those people too. So it's like maybe Leviathan is trying to build a giant hive mind of people. I mean, I guess the whole point is to kind of maybe trap people in the I mean, I guess it's a form of world domination in the sense of like trapping everyone in this simulation. To what ends, we don't know yet. But I'm assuming, I mean, because I would also explain why the glitch known about like, oh, you can't end the simulation, why that was kept in and like not taken out, because it's like you don't want people to escape. So like I said, maybe it's meant to create a hive mind for something else that Leviathan's doing, but I was thinking like, not let you get everyone inside of the simulation, you can, control the world from there. I mean, maybe it has something to do with the actual Leviathan itself. Because once again, it's like they talk about Leviathan, because I think they even said like her, like their boss, because like the only top dog we really interacted with was obviously Gemma and Romagon. So it's like beyond that, like it seemed like they answered to someone, or at least they kind of made it insinuating that they answered to someone, but maybe I misconstrued that. But it's like maybe this has something to do with that. I'm curious to see. Like, why else would you invest in a tech company like that? So it's interesting. So once again, this also stems from that situation of like, yeah, kind of spinning. Once again, was it last week I brought that up? Or maybe it was something else I brought it up. The whole Wall-E comparison. I think I might have. Once again, it was a situation of like, yeah, I've never watched Wall-E, but I know enough of it just because people have talked about it. I can make that comparison of people spending so much time in that virtual world. Obviously, we see that kind of reflected with Al and his brother Trevor. So, but obviously this is so widespread, so especially now that it's been shipped out, it's made public, it's kind of like that's going to be a complicated thing to 100% regulate, especially when Kelly was like, oh, there's stuff that's, because even people adding stuff on, like that house of nightmares, essentially it takes a while before that gets categorized, so that's even a complicated situation in itself. But present some very interesting stuff. I'm curious to ultimately see where this all takes us going forward with Leviathan. In particular, what this means, Nia, wanting answers about her and, Brainy, and I'm curious to see if he actually she confronts him about it next time, and then he has to, answer. Like, obviously, like, they need to they're still in the dark about 100% of everything that Leviathan's up to, so I'm ultimately curious to see where all this ultimately ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.